Hello and welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. Very excited to have Ramses Villela with us today, CEO of Cybermillions, Director of Consultix Mexico. Ramses directly works with projects on Republic as a venture partner as well too. Excited to get into your perspective here today, Ramses.
No, thank you, Jason, for inviting me and well, having this open conversation, which I hope that our experience, what we're doing, not necessarily every time successfully, but we've learned from mistakes also, which is always good, right? To learn by doing something, not just reading it. Mm-hmm. So we've been doing all kind of stuff. Let me just clarify. I am a part of what is called a venture partner with Republic, which allows us to present projects to the platform, etc. This is not an app; it's a non-paid position, but does help, right? So I'm very involved with the crowdfunding industry.
Excellent, excellent. And it's like you said, you learn the most from experience. We want to be able to tap into that for our audience of founders, marketing professionals, venture capital and equity crowdfunding industry professionals here today. You really do learn more. When things aren't going right, you have to make some pivots, some optimizations. So I want to be able to really get the pulse on that and again, your approach. But wanted to start with your story. If you could give us a bit on your background.
Sure. Well, I started working 2 years ago. I'm not sure if I'm telling when. The audience will find out that I'm not as young as I look. Well, but that's jokes aside. I started working in banks in 1998. Yes, that's before 2000, pretty much as a, in a broker dealer with it's now HSBC Mexico. It was called Banco Vital. And pretty much I, was stockbroker there, bond broker, then I started derivatives. Then I changed work and I was at a foreign exchange dealer where I started the derivatives desk for them, corporate sales. Then started working at an investment bank, running the foreign exchange desk and futures desk. Migrated that to be a market making desk for banks in Mexico. So it was what is called an interdealer broker. Pretty much we were just doing business between banks. Large positions, large swings of P&L, a lot of gray hair. So pretty much. At some point, I just decided that it was enough. And being a foreign exchange dealer, pretty much, it's a full job from Sunday 5 p.m. to Friday 5 p.m. You have, sometimes at Wednesday 3 a.m., some guy calling you, hey, dude, I need a price. I'm like, dude, I'm sleeping. So, but well, and then in 2011, I started my own firm, Consultix. Focus primarily on advising banks how to get better liquidity in terms of trading, and then started to selling software to the government and some financial advice tied to it. And at some point, a friend told me, hey, have you ever heard of Bitcoin? And I was like, no, I don't believe in that thing, right? He was like, this is not a religion. This is something that has to do with blockchain. And he explained to me the blockchain, and I was like, now I'm intrigued. I made a mistake. Maybe I would be rich by now, but as a foreign exchange trader, I didn't understand the mechanics behind the Bitcoin, the blockchain, etc. So at that point, I was like intrigued, read a lot. I called one of my partners now in Cybermillions and say, hey, dude, he's a physicist and a mathematician, right? So very geek, but in a good way. So he was like, Rambo, but what do you need to do? I said, I don't know. We need to do something with blockchain. He said, okay, find out what and come back to me. 2 weeks later, I said, hey, we need to do and change the way lotteries are run. The centralized, smart contracts, everything transparent. And later we found out that the regulatory aspects, it's quite a complicated thing for lotteries. In countries such as the United States, it's a criminal offense to run a lottery if you don't have a license. And obviously only very few entities have licenses for lotteries. And we could have done it with a Curacao a lottery license and go like below the radar in many countries. But we didn't want to have that over our heads, right? The potential legal issue of running a lottery that is not allowed. Because at the end of the day, when you're running digital marketing, your reach goes to a lot of places that maybe even with your targeting, you might reach a Jason that went to UK for vacation. Once you're there, boom, you get an ad, you download our app, right? So it's not necessarily as squared as someone would want. And pretty much we said, hey, we need $5 or $10 million to grow this. The regulatory aspect wasn't that easy. We learned crowdfunding there, but I'll come back to that. And at some point, having conversations with people from the UK investing in Mexico. I'm Mexican, by the way, I'm not even in Mexico. I know, Jason, you know that, but for the audience. And pretty much one of these ladies said, hey, Ramses, if you remove the money piece out of the prices, you could run these games or draws without a license. And I was like, that's right. And pretty much you could launch tomorrow if you have everything ready. So I stood there maybe for 3 minutes, just thinking. And I said, it's the same process. I just need to change out, it's the same flow, the payout, instead of having money to having experiences. For example, we offer the chance or the opportunity for people to win an awesome experience by contributing to something that has good social impact. For example, we're running right now a campaign that ends tomorrow that is win these AirPods Max. So all the proceeds go to COVID relief funds, only 60 entries. So what we want, and this is not an ad for what we're doing, but it's important for us, first of all, to have very clear opportunities to win. A lot of people get into, sweepstakes or lotteries, and you didn't even know what are your chances. Mega Millions, I believe, last time I ran it, I'm not sure anymore, but it was like 1 in 25 million.
Yeah.
Yes, you could win like $1 billion, every couple of years, but 1 in 25 million. So right now, for example, we're doing smaller kind of draws, but that people can actually win and have a traceability on that, which is very cool. We're running a live tomorrow to announce the winner of these AirPods Max. And we'll be we have a random thing with the phone that you do this and generates randomly the winner. So people will watch that generate, but we pivoted from the lottery with a huge uphill with the legal aspect and the funds needed to run that. And we use what we had to start doing the business. We do have everything ready for a lottery. We just need to scale up and have all people going through our process right now and getting emails, get leads, and eventually once we have enough saying, hey, download our app and you have other games and, try to grow like that. But we're going with smaller pieces. At some point, and maybe some of the founders out there have done the same. You have this huge idea, which is very cool. The problem is where to start with something that big. And I guess, and we learned, it took us maybe 18 months to learn this, which maybe if I read it, I could understood it easily or more faster, is that bite or, things that you can chew, right? Not bite, things that you cannot chew. And well, we're live now. We will be launching our crowdfunding soon with Republic. And I'm sure you will have more questions, but I told you to take it like a mental note earlier about how we learned about crowdfunding.
Yes.
For this lottery. We launched a crowdfunding campaign with a Chinese platform 2 years ago. Worst thing, right? We paid like 10 Bitcoins to get listed on exchange. creator coin. These guys claimed that they had millions of participants. And I was actually in Dubai at the time meeting investors. So imagine this, I'm pitching to investors in Dubai saying, hey guys, we need a couple $1 million. This is our use of proceeds, total addressable market, huge, you know, trying to make them fall in love with the idea, have a leaning moment or like, kind of moment. And suddenly a couple of guys say, but Ramses, you just raised $1 million in 90 seconds with this crowdfunding platform. I'm like, no, yes. And like the day after, it was, our coin was soaring like 1,000%. So I was like, is that real? You know, one of those moments that you say it's too good to be true.
Right.
And as many of those things, it was too good to be true. Lesson learned, we pretty much stopped doing that. Most of our resources were focused to try to achieve our coin offering, all of that. So we took a breather and said, hey, this is not working. We need to develop our product, get customers, go live as soon as we can, even if you don't have sales. Sometimes we're all so obsessed with sales, which obviously is the blood on the air of what we need, right? Or we're doing this. But if your life is easy for someone to say, hey, if you adjust this a little bit, your message or your storytelling could be more easily transmitted. Oh, if you're always on your blackboard taking notes, you're the only one seeing the same thing over and over and over, and you need to try to step back, right? But I'm not sure if you have a question, Jason. Sometimes I can speak a lot.
Just trying to keep up with it. So hearing your background, coming from more of the traditional road, starting, Consultix, being able to then work on your projects, the lottery, and going back into, some of the blockchain projects and how fast they raised. You said $1 million in a few minutes there?
In theory, 90 seconds, but it was just a marketing
90
scheme
seconds.
by the exchange.
Yes.
And to us, obviously.
It's mind blowing, right? I mean, you think about traditional, like a reward-based crowdfund campaign, the historical reward, equity crowdfunding. You look at cryptocurrency crowd sales and various types of formats that are prevalent in blockchain, and the time increments just completely change. They go upside down. Just to harness in on that for a moment, how are you guys able to do it? How are you able to do $1 million in 90 seconds?
Well, keep in mind, we didn't. That was what the exchange said everyone. They were trying to create what is called a pump and dump. Create a fear of missing out. It's like, hey, we sold everything in 90 seconds. Go and buy more. But then, at the end of the day, we were not seeing those sales against our blotter, right? So they were running that in the back. And we're like, at the end of the day, they said it was just a marketing scheme. You sold nothing. And pretty much you're as broke as when you started. And we're like, what? And it's when exactly I said, there is a better way for crowdfunding. Regulation and the regulatory sandbox in the United States is very clear.
Yes.
Yes, you do not have the promises. Well, maybe now with the increase of limit in Reg CF to 5 million, yes, you can raise, if your price is good enough and have enough traction, 5 million. But it is not a free lunch. And we all know that phrase, there is no free lunch in America. And it's true. But at least you can get a shot of raising 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. For a lot of startups, that could be a huge difference. Because sometimes you run through your, friends and family around so quickly. Or you don't raise enough from them to achieve certain level of sales. What do you do then? You're too small for VCs. You're too big for the friends and family round, because sometimes they say, hey, dude, my pockets are dry, at least for that. And you cannot just every day continue to ask for more funds, right? That niche is actually, I believe, the hardest. Or you need to work with angels. There are many, many great networks, but also access those are not like so easy to find, right?
Sure.
It's like, you know that they exist, but you do not really know how to get there.
Right.
So like, right? So, which are great, and they take a very, they make a good, or they have a great role in the ecosystem. And that's why we like crowdfunding. That's what, you know, we got into the crowdfunding, or I got into crowdfunding. It was like very clear. You could raise funds. Yeah, maybe not 1 million. Yeah, but it's real. Maybe you raise 100K, but you will see 100K in your bank account.
Yes.
Right.
And that's why I'm such a fan of it as well, too. When we started the agency, we were really a growth marketing company and focusing on startup to mid-market organizations. But we found fundraising to be a common theme, a common initiative. We were always working on some aspect of a capital raise with our clients. So when we were first introduced to Reg D equity crowdfunding, accredited investor raises, light bulb went off of, wow,
yeah,
like you're mentioning, I could put real dollars in the bank account for our clients from advertising, from marketing, from these different tactics and tools. We watched that continue with Reg CF. Very excited about the expansion that happened in March with clients well into the 7-figure ranges already from that. We got heavy into cryptocurrency and blockchain late 2017. As far as I'm concerned, we were late to the party, but we did some major raises, and similar to what you're saying, but using real channels. These weren't just any type of pump and dumps. That's why I was curious if there were some marketing channels that attributed to that first million. But we've now gone on to work with different types of exchanges, groups that are registered with the SEC, been traded publicly on the digital asset side. Meanwhile, the largest part of our client list is equity crowdfunding, and for the reasons that you just mentioned, it's legitimate, it's regulated, it's following compliance. We've found very little to no cases of fraud in our research. Yes, it does still carry the inherent risk that a private equity investment would entail. You picture, more of the textbook 9 out of 10 fail, 1 works in a private equity portfolio, which is high risk. It's a small percentage of investors' portfolio. Also, with the low minimum investments, $100, $500, somewhere in there is usually the minimum. Sometimes it's a bit higher. Not a major loss for any group. So they understand the risk. They're participating at a level that they feel comfortable with. In fact, the SEC even limits how much they could invest based on their net worth, based on their household income. So we definitely feel good about it. And then as a vehicle, we've seen it to be more and more effective. 2 years back, 18 months, 2 years back, we saw a big shift in the effectiveness of campaigns. Definitely over the past 12 months since the pandemic started, actually. Let's call it March, April of 2020. These things are just becoming more and more successful, and the amount of investors involved keep raising and raising and raising. So in the past, we would really only work with groups on equity crowdfunding when they asked us, when they were introduced and referred. Now, anyone we speak to, we're pointing towards what's working over there, and we're working with blockchain companies on their equity crowdfund campaign. I know that's a big thing over at Republic.
Exactly, and there are so many different verticals. One thing I like about Republic is that they have your crypto or blockchain embedded, gaming, real estate, and startups, technology, right? Which pretty much, if you're a founder, whatever you have should fall into those categories. I love, obviously, other platforms such as WeFounder. I think they've done an amazing job. And with the different theses of they do not vet the deals that come, but their perspective is that the market will correct itself if it's a good project or not a good project. Will raise a lot of funds. Now, but this is not a commercial for any platform. One thing I like is that you can get results. And if you have a very anchored expectation of what you can get, most likely you will get it. What I'm trying to say is, yes, the limit is 5 million, but if you have like $10,000 monthly recurring revenue, and your traction is maybe growing 10% month over month, the user base, which is a very decent traction. To get from 0 to there is a decent traction. You cannot expect easily to reach a 5 million mark, right? But you can start with one, maybe for 150 to 100,000, get it done, continue to hit your milestones, inform your community of what you're doing, and being very diligent about sending these little pieces of information frequently to your followers and your investors. So in 6 months, which literally you can raise again according to the, to the Reg CF regulation, and you could go maybe for $1 million, right? But now you're building from strength. You have a successful campaign ran, you are hitting milestones. Maybe at that time, if you use your funds correctly, you have a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 monthly recurring revenue, and maybe your numbers will, the storytelling will be easier. So one key thing is keep your even with small pieces of information, your investor community engaged. Make them feel they're part of the team, that they're like behind the scenes kind of feeling. Even for $100, that they feel that they walk into a restaurant and they could go in the kitchen and say hi to the chef, right? That kind of feeling. When we started one campaign that we ran in Republic a few months ago, we were trying to make everything with a lot of production. Right? No, this video is not good. To inform the community and to give updates. And Janine, that runs that department in Republic, she said, Ramses, you're wasting too much energy and time to try to produce these so much. People want to see the behind the scenes kind of approach where the artist is not wearing makeup, right? And we're like, oh, and once we started doing that, we saw a lot more engagement from the community. And now we're using that for most of the projects we're talking. We're launching like 6 different projects in the next 8 weeks. And hey, just have your community engaged. Do not need to use that makeup. And sometimes I'm terrible at speaking of cameras. Maybe you're not saying that, but for me to have my phone and trying to do like an Instagram live or Facebook live, I'm not sure I'm like terrible. And sometimes it's just start doing it, and people need to see a face behind the brand, that someone is talking constantly. So just be consistent on your message. Do not overcomplicate things. Try to inform and engage your community. Always thinking that the path to liquidity or your funding journey, it is a continuous journey for every company. It is not like, oh, okay, I did my Reg CF, I have 200,000, and you just let it. No, you need to plan. What would you do in 6 months and 9 months? Because these campaigns take a couple months of planning, then the ongoing campaign, then the closing, then what you execute with your funds are receiving. So you need to think, hey, I'm going for 200K, but in 6 months I'm going for maybe 100K, and eventually you'll go potentially to a Reg D for 5, 10 mil, right? And you can build blocks with these different regulatory exemptions, which now platforms are very flexible, depending on the accredited investors or whatever. For example, we funded, if you start receiving large tickets, they create for you your Reg D. So you're running parallel your Reg D and your Reg CF.
Side by side.
Which is great. Republic doesn't have it quite like that, but they have now their accredited or the deal room for accredited investors that you could run your Reg D campaign also there. But there are many interesting things. So again, sometimes all of us, and I've done this, we see this huge milestones of getting to $1 million, and it becomes a daunting journey. It's breaking into smaller pieces, but making it more easier to achieve, it will definitely, it's like making your steps instead of this side, right? Mm-hmm. You take the first one. Yes, it will take you 5 steps to get to the first one, but you continue to move ahead.
Absolutely. And what I like about these platforms so much, I mean, I was doing this offline years back, working with startups. I was in-house at a social gaming startup. We secured $3 million in capital, and it was brutal. Over 75 versions of the deck, countless meetings. It's actually one of the earlier meetings that ended up panning out much later in the cycle. And that was on something that worked. So I look at equity crowdfunding, as I say, when Reg D was first introduced to me, I had this aha moment. But you're able to bring that lead investor, those anchor investors, to kick off the round from your first three connections, or anyone you're currently speaking to once the round's live, to be compliant. But you showcase that on a platform like Republic or WeFunder or Start Engine, Title III funds, micro ventures, well, whatever it may be. And they begin promoting it to their audience. We then run digital marketing towards it. We have historical investor audiences that we've tested across about 15 portals at this point, and seen conversions. So you're really able to amplify everything you're seeing offline. And the examples you're giving of what founders could do, the advantage to investors in getting involved in this, and just adding to that story, adding to that momentum, showcasing, instead of having one conversation with one angel or VC, you're able to record it and have it on a video. And even if it's not polished, low production video is thriving these days.
Yeah.
We're not in a broadcast studio. We're putting out, thought leadership from this discussion. And I say the same thing to founders where, like you were mentioning, I mean, if they just talk to their phone, they're doing a Facebook, Instagram, YouTube live, they're hopping on Clubhouse, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're talking about new updates and showcasing momentum on a weekly basis, daily basis. Yeah. We see the most active founders with the highest raise amounts. If I look for consistent elements in any successful campaign, there's usually a very proactive, enrolling at that founder behind the wheel.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's, and this is nothing new, but it's become your brand, right? It's like in the past,
like that.
You had, your LinkedIn corporate accountant. Right now, it's, like the CEO or some spokesperson that is active there. Sometimes that the corporate accounts are not as active, but you need to, leave it, right? And that actually creates a lot of, and you are from marketing side, I'm not, but that creates more organic, natural kind of interactions that make more real. So people feel more connected. At the end of the day, it's connect emotionally or with investors or with clients, right? So when you're more authentic, you can be touching those fibers maybe more easily and convert them from clients to investors or investors to clients, both ways, which is one of the essences, right, of the crowdfunding. If you have an ongoing product or live product, go out, try to raise funds from these platforms, but also try to tap in from that huge audience that will now get to know you and convert them to clients, obviously. So, and there are so many cool strategies. It depends on the type of business. If it's only digital, if it has a physical store. Right now, we are implementing for a craft beer, where every label will have a QR. You can scan. You're drinking your beer, say, "Hey, this is good. Be part of us." Boom. You can scan it, take you to the offering page, and you can literally buy there, right? So, and then you have a different kind of marketing because you're already printing labels. You're just adding a QR, and that people already knows your product, if they like them or not. If they like them, they say, "Hey, boom," right? If they don't like them, yeah, it is what it is. Not everyone will love you, but they're very different, cool strategies, I guess. And it's just thinking outside the box and finding what is the flavor of your brand and what are you doing if you have tangible products to sell or intangible, and how to get connected with the people, right?
Exactly. And what do you look at when you're evaluating these deals? You're on the venture side of Republic, leading a consultancy, and everything you're doing at Cybermillions. How do you really evaluate a deal? How do you look to consult on it or add value and get them to their goal quicker?
Well, first of all, it has to do with traction, right? And if the product is easy to understand or not. At the
Sure.
end of the day, we need to take in consideration that there is a lot of competition, right? Every day there may be, across all platforms, maybe 10, 20 deals going live. So the pool of investors, pretty much, it's a limited universe of investors across all the crowdfunding platforms. Maybe
Sure.
5 million, 7 million, whatever. All of us are competing for their attention. Hey, invest here, right? So is it easy to understand? Is it easy that in your offering page, people in 30, 60 seconds will know what problem you're solving, what is your business model, and why you?
Yes. Yes.
You know, we have a very cool project that it has taken me ages. I love the product. It's a non-invasive glucometer, which is very cool. You know, for people that have diabetes, you don't have to pinch yourself to, you know, for the measurement. You just have like a beam of light, and it tells you if your glucose is normal, below, above, whatever. It's an amazing product, but it's hard to explain in 30, 60 seconds in these kind of platforms, right? For $200.
Yeah.
So the goal on the consultancy side for me is try to understand exactly. At the end of the day, I have become a salesman for them across angels, VCs, PE, crowdfunding platforms, and I need to understand perfectly. If I'm finding trouble to understand, it's not necessarily for me easy to say yes. If I am not even understanding, that means I cannot transmit it. That means it's going to be complicated for others to understand, and thus making a pain in the neck for everyone to raise funds. And we try to suggest what's the best strategy for certain kind of companies. We say, hey, engage, yes, with a platform, but you need to bring a lot of your own network. If you don't have a big network, there are angel networks that actually could tap into it. You just need to, as we were saying maybe 30 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, you just need to know where to look for those networks. Mm-hmm. And realize that it might take you 2 or 3 more months in your funding journey, because you need to tap into the angels and make it happen along, you know, the platform, and have the investors in jumping what is called the jump in the bandwagon, right? That everything is moving so quick that your lead investor is helping you to push the needle up in your raising funds and have more people jumping in, and not with a marketing scheme, but with a real funding and structured campaign. So
yeah, absolutely. And you know, when people come to the table and they're asking, how do they launch on Republic as an example? How do they start going about more traditional routes? What are your recommendations towards them in terms of what to test out, be it marketing channels or their presentation? I know you mentioned their messaging to a great degree there. We like to say their messaging has to be simple enough, clean enough, so that not just their audience can understand it, but their audience could repeat it. They can be ambassadors to it. Just as you were mentioning there, what are the insights? How do you direct companies in terms of what they should test out?
Well, I usually tell them that, you know, their storytelling needs to be very, very clean and practiced. The storytelling, what you're saying right now, obviously it goes into your deck, explainer video, and all of that, right? And it has to have, you know, this very simple, what it's called the hero journey, or the hook story offer, right? How you hook them,
yes, story
and what exactly. So it's to prepare your story, communicate constantly with your investors, even if you're going for a 3 million round after a small test, you know, with whatever platform, right? If you build from strength, it will always be easier, and tell your story correct, and try to have successful stories, even if ours is more. You go for $100,000 with any platform, you hit 150. That's a successful story. Even if your goal is 150, if you raise 140, it looks like a failure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. So That's why most platforms have like the minimum offering 25K, 50K, have that, go for and raise 100, but have something that is called successful round. And you can advertise, hey, we had a successful round for 100K. 100K will help you to build the next Uber or Airbnb. Definitely not, but you're one step closer.
Right.
And your next round, you're saying, hey, I already raised successfully 100% of what I was, going for. And now I'm going for 500,000, but now you use your funds and you build up your community. So I guess it's one step at a time using the correct tools. RegCF is amazing, depending the size of your firm, right? If you're too big, you might just go for the RegD. And understanding how to build the blocks with these regulatory exemptions, which are great. Maybe even start with RegD and then go for Reg Plus. We're actually, for one client now, we're launching a RegCF campaign in 3 to 4 weeks for a RegCF for 5 million. We've already have a network of angel investors and private investors with 2 million, earmarked for 2 million. So it's kind of very cool. But as soon as we're done with that, which is just not necessarily testing the waters to confuse with a term, that is legally described within the law. But once we do that, we'll start preparing for Reg Plus. We went for 75 minutes, but we need to have that first big milestone that everyone knows, that it validates your market value, and that you can say, hey, I already did. Oh, okay. Now you have that, as you said before, your aha moment, right? So investors are like, really? Oh, now you're talking, right? So,
exactly.
Cool.
And what about when things aren't working? I look at marketing talent, entrepreneur skills at that, by being able to pivot, take something that isn't hitting the milestones and improving it to be able to be on a new trajectory to surpass the goal benchmarks. Not everything works out of the gate. If I look at RegCF campaigns before March 15th, there's a little over 1,000 and a little over 200 of them surpassed 7 figures, given some of the goals were lower than a million. RegCF allows for that. But the majority of campaigns do not hit their full goal. It's the nature of fundraising, marketing, and overall entrepreneurship. But what can be done to turn around a campaign that is not hitting the goal benchmarks?
Oh, that's a complicated one. You want to be ahead of the curve.
Okay.
If you're with a campaign live, I'm not sure, a 90-day campaign, and you're 30 days after, and it's not gaining traction, it might cost you double, your money and your efforts to try to reach. So you need to make sure to get out of the gate as strong as you can, whatever that means for the size of your startup. That means having your friends and family saying, yes, dude, once again, you need to invest a little bit, but now it's $100, $200, $500, not necessarily 20 or 30,000, to try to get to that precise point where that it changes with every platform, but Republic is 25K, WeFounder 50K, that you can really get your company presented via email marketing to every investor they have. That is your first big hurdle that you need to make sure, right? Once you hit that, you gain certain momentum. The problem is not to lose that momentum. That momentum maybe lasts 3 to 4 days, right? Once the email is sent and you received, either you received it and you act on it, or you go through your inbox the following day and you do it, or it's gone, right? It is, not like, hey, you're looking for the deals from last week.
Sure.
The impact is quick. You need to act quick on it. You need to have your post, thank you investors, we reached this amount, but have them ready, whatever that milestone is for you, because every campaign is different, right? So you have it ready. If you send that email, right, you hit the 25K, you be sure, hey, 25K and we're coming strong. Give that sense of urgency in a good way, not overstating anything, but thinking ahead. sometimes, and when you're saying, hey, you know, we're 25K, let's prepare something. It takes 3 days, right? And prepare something and publish, momentum kind of gets lost. But going back to your question, which is again hard, you need to try to step ahead, be ahead. If you're not ahead, you need to either increase your budget for marketing with agencies such as yours that you have, like, you know, your KPIs very well studied, where you know how much will you invest and what is the probable outcome or return over investment with that, which if I recall, you're the expert, I'm not, maybe it's like, what, like 8-to-1 or something like that?
10x is what we shoot for.
10x. So you need a little bit of money. Yes, you need a little bit of money, but at least you know that you will invest 1 and get 9 back or 10 back. Well, which is good, is measurable. You can literally plan ahead on that, and definitely be sure to send an email to every guy, girl, friend, whatever have in your market, in your contact list. Even if you're not have ever taken the time to explain what you do, be ready before. Say, hey, we're launching a campaign. We will invite you. You know, you're the expert on the marketing funnel, but it's an amazing tool that you need to have. And once you finish your first campaign, if you have 3,000 investors, hopefully you have their emails. Be sure to send an email every once in a while saying, hey guys, milestones. Yes, you need to do it within the block of the platform, but you need to also have that email. That email, you know, it's like gold. You can literally prepare your next campaign sending, hey, we're coming back, be ready, all of the marketing strategies, and try to come out of the gate very strong.
Absolutely. And coming out of the gate strong, like you said, hit the first degree connections, friends, family, peers, coworkers, past coworkers, anybody. I've had founders say they contacted people from grade school and they were in their 50s, 60s. So everyone, and getting them to show up, the funnel, all important elements coming out, but reevaluate these things if it's not working. Look to strengthen the funnel and each touch point that's required to see conversion. Bring more people to the table to have some momentum. The platforms really thrive on it. It's a great way to amplify. So if you bring in new investors each day, it's going to be reflected in your position on the platforms based on their algorithm. What about scaling? What about some success stories? Is there anything that you've been involved in or point out as commonalities towards successful campaigns and being able to scale up to the next stages?
Well, we've run some campaigns that after the first successful one that they can build on their story, going for bigger rounds with accredited investors. Again, everything has to do with how you tell your story. It's like with awards, right? That who won depending who's telling the story, right? It's a little bit of the same. You need to make a very black and white or binary analysis after your campaign. Say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and how we will tell the people about the result. If you raise 50K and you were raising 50K, you need to tell it wasn't amazing because you hit your mark, right? Even if you needed 200K because otherwise you cannot have enough gas or run rate or leeway. But if you tell that as a failure, then boom, you're doomed, right? So I'm always overly positive and maybe an optimistic, but you need to tell the story to engage people and say, hey, these guys know what they're doing. They have the power to overcome things. And you need to convince people on that, because at the end of the day, companies need more funding. We see daily all of those big companies raising 500 million, 300 million, 7 million, and they have billion-dollar sales and they continue to raise funds. But so this is not a 0 or 1 kind of thing. Oh, I raised funds once, I don't need. No, you need continuously. So it needs to become like a daily practice. As you said before, that you have your pitch deck, that it's every time you're looking at, I changed this word. but you need to continue to work on that. And hey, is my framework of the pitch deck correctly set up? Problem, solution, team. Do I have a tagline in my first slide that it tells something interesting for people to continue to read? Or I have something boring. I was consulting with a fintech firm not so long ago in Mexico. Fintech is hot, right? You know, and everywhere. Mexico is one of those places. And they had a very important milestone as a tagline, right? We are the first with whatever. I said, that is an amazing milestone. But people read that milestone and they don't understand what you're doing. People don't understand what you're doing. They will not invest with you, even if you say you have your last name as fintech. So it's reading a lot. One thing I do recommend, it's the Startup School from Y Combinator, startup.org, I think is the website. Review their curriculum there. They have tips for preparing your decks, and that one I found it very, very, very clarifying. It's more simple than sometimes we want to do it. Do not use very confusing words. When I was doing this blockchain, crypto, decentralized lottery, I literally saw a lot of guys, very wealthy guys that could just literally say, hey, take $1 million, return whenever you, good luck, right? And they were like, I got that feeling that they only got from the whole conversation, the, hey, good afternoon, I'm Ramses, boom. And then pretty much they were like blank, right? So make things easy to understand, not to impress with that we all know fancy words, very clear messaging. Yep. And well, I think that's it.
It's as you said, if you can understand someone and you can understand the messaging, your likelihood to trust or take action, such as promote that individual, that offering, is substantially higher. So make sure it's resonating, make sure it's clear. And Ramses, the recommendations you're giving here, very in line with what we talk about at DNA, and really recommend for any listeners to look to adopt to their own philosophies, their own model, and what they're working on. To wrap up, do you have any final thoughts, notes to any listeners?
Well, I would say sometimes it sounds like huge, right? Sometimes many new terms. Most of those are easier to understand than at first sight. Do not feel overwhelmed. It is doable. Companies doing it every day. There's a lot of material you can read out there. Some people explain it very complicated, some very easy. Find the one that resonates, that talks to you. We all have different mindsets, right? Some were more complex, some more simple. Find the one that resonates with you and just start. Just do it. Go. Be careful with your cash, obviously, in terms of if you're going for 50K raise, try not to spend 50K in that raise, right? Use accredited or the professional network from the platforms, from lawyers to CPAs. You spend a very little amount of time explaining to them what they need to do, because they do that on a daily basis. Their fees are usually very within budget for startups. If you start trying to say, hey, I'll go with my friend who is an accountant, you spend a couple of days explaining to them what you're not haven't even understood completely. So you have them spending 3 more days trying to find about it. You lost a couple of weeks and precious time from you and from him, right? Use from the network. You just brief them. This is my startup. I'm going live. This platform, very concrete, takes you 15 minutes to brief them. And you have usually flat fees, for US GAAP financials, 2019, 2020, usually it's about $500. Boom. Revised financials for 20, usually it's $1,000. It could change a little bit, right? It is not, but you have at least a very accurate way. With the Form C, which is the document that you file with the SEC, it's the same. If you call a major firm, you'll pay for a Form C, maybe 20K, 30K. It's the limit. There are many of these guys that work amazingly well. They work with the platforms, and depending the complexity of your deal and the history, you might pay 4K, 5K. They have a very manageable budget. And as you said, call even your kindergarten friend, even if you smack them around or you were smacking around right, then, at a school, yeah, and say, hey, dude, you owe me, invest now, try to build a momentum from the start.
Absolutely. And we see so many people think that they're going to go on a platform and the platform is going to do all the work. So I love how you're pointing out, no, you got to hustle, bring as many people to it, leverage these marketing channels, leverage this, leverage everything you can. And Ramses, if anyone wants to continue this conversation after everything they've heard, tell you about what they're doing and see if there's any ways to collaborate or just get feedback, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you? What's your preferred method of communication?
Thank you for that. I love to have conversations. Sometimes I just give them a couple pointers and that's it. I work with the basis of giving, and what you give, you will receive. So sometimes I just give free advice. I cannot do it on a daily basis. I do need to pay for school and other kind of things. But LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn, which I think is Ramses Villela Cybermillions, and WhatsApp, also email. My email, it's complicated, but the one from Cybermillions is very easy. It's rambo@cybermillions.io. I think you will never forget that. My friends call me Rambo since I was a kid. And sometimes a lot of people think my name is Rambo. They're saying, hey, Mr. Rambo, good day. But
it's a good nickname right there, by the way. As we got internally on our whiteboards, it's Rambo. Just it always stands out strong.
I know. It's a good marketing thing.
Well, Ramses, or Rambo, I should say, thank you so much for joining us here today. Opening up your viewpoint towards all of these great new fintech portals that are now out today. Want to thank everyone for listening in as well. Make sure to tune in next time and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good luck to all. And just a start, right? It's the best way to get something done.
Just the beginning and keep it moving. Absolutely.
Exactly. Awesome. Right. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thanks again. Take care.